The Naruto series has given us so many cool abilities over the years, ranging from reality-bending feats of what I can only consider to be magic, to running fast no jutsu. Kekkei Genkai, or bloodline limits, are some of the most unique and diverse abilities that have set the bar as far as shonen powers and the expectations of how creative they should be. So today, I want to talk about every one of the Kekkei Genkai we have seen throughout this long-running and beloved series, rank them in a vacuum, removing the sometimes useless wielder of the technique, and consider what the actual genetic limit of some of these jutsu are. I won't be talking about dojutsu as it would double the length of the video, and they pretty much would take all of the top spots. But if it's requested enough, I'll do a dojutsu ranking video next. Before we begin, I want to briefly explain what a Kekkei Genkai is, the categories they generally fall into, and how a person might obtain one. Kekkei Genkai are almost always tied to ancestry, genetics, or blood, meaning you can either be born into a long lineage that has either developed or mutated it, or obtain one through the acquisition of someone else's cells, blood, or in some cases their organs. Kekkei Genkai are unofficially broken down into categories, differentiating the elemental Kekkei Genkai like lava or ice release, and the body mutations like the Jugo Clans. The elemental Kekkei Genkai are presumed mixtures between two base elements, creating in most cases a more powerful combination. Though in some cases, it really doesn't amount to much, as we will see later. And the body mutations aren't in any way related to the base elements and utilize cellular structures and the ability to manipulate them to achieve their feats of strength. It should be noted that Kekkei Genkai are not limited to a singular village, which either means that genetic traits migrated across the shinobi world, which is fairly likely, or mutations that create Kekkei Genkai bearing genetics aren't that uncommon, given that we have Kekkei Genkai like Lava Release that is manifested in 3 different villages, Mei-Terumi and Kirigakure, Dodai and Kumogakure, and Kurotsuchi and Iwagakure. And unless we can argue that these 3 are somehow related, I think either theory holds some truth about the genetic leniency that allows the creation of a Kekkei Genkai. As we've seen with Kekkei Toda, Oniki states that Mu was the one to teach him, and since we don't have any in-canon evidence that would tie the two together genetically, we can once again surmise that the genetic traits needed to unlock a Kekkei Genkai or Kekkei Toda aren't as strict as being a direct descendant or child of someone who has previously used these techniques. So to kick things off, we have a head-scratching entry with the Aburi clan's Kekkei Genkai. This effectively gives the clan the ability to turn themselves into smoke. Yup. Okay, well, there are actually some good uses of this ability that can be cool, like the ability to possess another person and control their actions. They can also enter the body of another person and cause them pain and, I guess, eventually death. I guess if you don't sneeze them out. Which is fatal to them, by the way. Oh, did I not mention that even the slightest breeze causes their bodies to dissipate and they die? So their one technique that they're afforded by their Kekkei Genkai is hard countered by a sneeze. And if the opponent uses this maneuver, they insta-kill the user of this Kekkei Genkai. I will say, if they're fighting within optimal conditions like inside a cave or a house with the windows closed, their abilities are somewhat akin to Kamui intangibility that Obito had. That being able to convert specific body parts into smoke to avoid physical or chakra-based damage. However, that doesn't really address the gust of wind that's created when somebody throws a punch at you. Would that be enough to kill them? I don't know. But what I do know is that this is the worst Kekkei Genkai in all of Naruto. Yanaru's Kekkei Genkai is only just barely better than the previous entry, and that is solely because it doesn't die to a sneeze. And even so, it was still close. Basically, this Kekkei Genkai allows the user to do a singular thing, which, as we will see later on, sometimes diversity isn't necessary to make a Kekkei Genkai great. But that's not the case here. This gives the user an ability to share information, mentally or telepathically, with his shadow clones. And that's it. So let's say the user sees a bird somewhere in nature. He can telepathically tell the rest of his clones that he saw a bird. And now, all this ability does is allow the clones to know about the bird. That's it. The Shadow Clone Jutsu already sort of does this, but in one direction, allowing the user to disperse their clones and receive whatever information the clone had acquired in its time. That could mean scouting, training, or whatever. So this Kekkei Genkai is only marginally better than one of the Shadow Clone Jutsu's abilities, which this says to me that Tobirama is truly the coolest and most creative Hokage, creating what amounts to effectively a Kekkei Genkai. Next up we have Mud Release, which is supposedly the mixture of earth and water, but it literally is just watered down earth release, the Kirkland brand earth release if you will. It doesn't do anything unique, and the one user of it died unremarkably. Actually, if this is an entire Kekkei Genkai, then how can we explain what Jiraiya did in his fight against Orochimaru? Was Jiraiya secretly a mud release user? I don't know, but I do know that this is only marginally better than the previous two, and while I have nothing bad to say about it necessarily, I really have nothing good to say about it. At best, I can see this technique being used to create landslides, which Earth Release can do. Never mind, let's just move on. Next up we have Steel Release, which we can only assume is formed from Earth and Fire. Unfortunately, Steel Release suffers from being hardly more useful than Earth Release. It allows the users to harden their bodies to the point of what can only assume to be the hardness of steel, but unfortunately, Earth Release Earth Spear hardens the body to that of a diamond. And while I'm not a geologist, I'm pretty sure that makes Steel Release hot trash. Otherwise, any other jutsu you can imagine Earth Release doing, in theory, a user of this Kekkei Genkai with an insane amount of chakra cost could do. Given how heavy and dense steel is, it would probably cost a lot more to manifest. Though chakra cost is sort of a concept that died around the war arc in Shippuden, but it's still a consideration. Alright, we have a controversial one coming up next, and that's Shikotsu Myaku, or Dead Bone Pulse. We all know this very famously was used by Kimimaro in Part 1, and it allows the user to manifest and manipulate their bones for both offensive and defensive purposes. This also was used by Kaguya at the end of the series, through which she used her all-killing Ash Bones technique. And this makes it the first entry that I'm a bit saddened to see placed so low, but I can't really take Kaguya's ability to disintegrate people as the extent of what this Kekkei Genkai can do, and more of an ability of Kaguya herself, which only means we can take into consideration how useful bone creation would be. And I think it fared well in the standard field to be honest, but it is just basically spiky Earth Release with extra steps. Perhaps the user could be more creative with its usage, creating like an exoskeleton, which would act sort of like a suit of armor, but that's really not that impressive. We also have to consider that Kimimaro wasn't just a normal everyday user of the technique, he was empowered by the Curse Seal level 2, which is effectively just a free trial version of Sage Mode. So what we saw was truly the extent of what was possible. And before I upset the Kimimaro stans, I absolutely agree that if he wasn't mortally sick, he almost definitely could have defeated Lee and Gaara. That said, this Kekkei Genkai still doesn't even come close to the top spots. A Boil Release once again uses logic in which elements it's comprised of course being water and fire, and is the first elemental Kekkei Genkai that can be obtained by becoming the host to a specific tailed beast, that being the Five Tails Kokuo. I'll talk about the non-Biju version first, which basically allows the user to create acidic mists. Basic, simple, and to the point. However, these mists are so potent that they have been shown to melt Sasuke's Susanoo, a fairly decent feat to achieve considering how durable we know these Susanoo to be. And next we have the Biju version, famously used by Han, the Jinchuriki of the Five Tails. He uses it to buff himself by utilizing the release of pressure he creates, using his steam armor to enhance his strength and speed of his movements. He effectively becomes a steam engine. Nothing that amazing, but totally serviceable. I genuinely think the applications of this technique are quite extensive, and applying real-world logic to it, if the concepts of a steam engine exists, why is technology in Naruto so primitive? Explosion Release, for whatever reason, is comprised of earth and lightning, rather than fire and earth or fire and lightning. But it really does exactly what it sets out to do, create explosions. Truthfully, to me, this is the first elemental Kekkei Genkai that is totally serviceable, and that I really have nothing negative to say about. Deidara's version with Clay isn't really unique to him, as the hand thing is just a kinjutsu that can be taught to anyone. However, C4 is actually one of the most deadly jutsu in the series, and if Kishimoto wasn't trying to gas up Sasuke, he would've and should've died to that attack that releases millions of microscopic bombs in an area that seem pretty damn large. This one earns its spot here in my opinion, pretty much solely due to this jutsu, but stays so low on the list because of it being countered by anyone who has the smallest ability to flow lightning chakra throughout their body. Storm Release is another Kekkei Genkai appropriately comprised of water and lightning, famously used by Darui from Kumogakure, Hiriko, some movie villain who will come up a bit later. Oh, and who else? Oh right, Madara Uchiha. Normally, the user can manipulate beams of electricity that flow like water and deal pretty significant damage. However, Hiriko utilized a jutsu that creates a thundercloud, which apparently absorbs infinite chakra and can be used to repurpose this chakra to grow continuously stronger. Infinite feedback jutsu should stay in the movie continuity. And of course, Madara used this Kekkei Genkai in his Jubi Jinchuriki form, which can not only cut through Truth Seeker orbs, it also apparently moves at the speed of light. This jutsu really broke the entire power scaling section of the Naruto community, because now all you hear is that Naruto is faster than light level and beats up your other favorite anime character. It is an extremely potent Kekkei Genkai, limited only by the fact that its most powerful jutsu are locked behind either movies or Jubi DLC. Swift Release is apparently a combined nature Kekkei Genkai like Storm or Explosion, but neither of the base elements are listed, so I think it's safe to assume that it's either lightning or wind, considering this only has one ability, which is to move really fast. Like, so fast in fact, that Hiroko, the user of this Kekkei Genkai, was able to attack Sakura at completely different angles, instantaneously, as if he were a character in the Dragon Ball Z series. This is pretty substantial, as we don't even see characters like Sasuke, who Kishimoto once again gasses up to be the speed demon, and he doesn't even manage to blitz people this immaculately. It's pretty much instantaneous movement for basically no drawback. And while we only saw it for a brief time, we all know how powerful speed is as a modifier, considering it helped make the likes of Minato a legendary figure in his time. Next up we have Lava Release, and the second of the elemental Kekkei Genkai, obtainable by becoming a Jinchuriki, this time associated with the Four Tails. This one is comprised of earth and fire, of course, otherwise we'd have to have a serious talk with Mr. Kishimoto. Roshi's version utilizes what you'd more or less expect to see: lava. He's able to manipulate lava in a solid or liquid state, coat himself in a chakra cloak, and cause magma to erupt in incredible quantities, large enough to engulf the Eight Tails. The non-Biju version has been seen to create vulcanized rubber, which is strong against the lightning element, which sort of makes no sense given how the elements interact with each other, but whatever. Science trumps the rules of the given power system, I guess. Mei is able to create acidic mud, Kurotsuchi is able to create volcanic ash and quicklime, which is just another acidic mist effectively. All in all, if you were taught this Kekkei Genkai, you'd be happy about its versatility and destructive power. Crystal Release is one of the most versatile Kekkei Genkai we have on the list, being comprised of presumably earth and some other element, maybe wind. I can't be really sure. However, what we do know is that it's been shown to create immense and powerful structures, imprisoning skilled ninja, and in actuality, it has the ability to crystallize any living creature on a molecular level. This is the second time we've seen an ability operate on that level, and once you get down to manipulating with precision like this, it can get pretty insane. I think the trump card of this Kekkei Genkai actually is the Crystal Imprisonment Wave. Basically, the user sends out a wave of particles, and if you're hit with them, you're encased in a crystal that can disintegrate you. Honestly, an amazing Kekkei Genkai, just held back by its user. Okay, Ice Release. The mixture of wind and water, of course, and is one of my personal favorites of the elemental Kekkei Genkai. Actually in my top 3 of all Kekkei Genkai in the series. And no, that's not because I had a childhood crush on the world's first trap Haku, you're just projecting. Much like Crystal Release, the user can manifest ice structures using the literal moisture in the air, using basically no hand seals, and the structures they create are so cold that they can cause the surrounding area to begin snowing. That's probably a little bit of an oversimplification of what's actually happening, and maybe in a later video I'll break down how broken Haku should have been. Another insane feat this Kekkei Genkai has is the ability for the user to enter the Crystal Ice Mirror's jutsu, and move at the speed of light. This was confirmed by the first databook, but I should mention that Sasuke with a 1 Tomoe Sharingan and Naruto using his initial Jinchuriki form were able to defeat Haku using this technique. And while we aren't taking users into consideration so much, any feat with such a grandiose wording definitely deserves a high spot on this list. Scorch Release is up next, and it's a pretty simple one with devastating effects. It's made up of wind and fire and has exactly 2 jutsu to its name, but the second one is basically just a stronger version of the first one with a detonation feature. This Kekkei Genkai allows the users to create mini suns that hover all around them. They don't seem to radiate any heat, but if they come in contact with someone, all moisture in that affected region is immediately evaporated. It's just an insta-kill Kekkei Genkai and earns its rightful spot for it. Supposedly, this Kekkei Genkai is weak to water, but I can't logically justify that, so I won't be including it in the analysis. All in all, I think provided the right circumstances, this Kekkei Genkai could excel in both the 1v1 and 1vx setting, where the user is remotely sending these suns out and attacking all enemies at blind angles. Given that there's no defined range of the jutsu, and probably is just limited by chakra control or chakra supply, there's no telling at what range you could attack from, making this extremely deadly against almost all foes. At first, Typhoon release was going to go near the bottom of this list, because it's just effectively better wind release, and while wind release is pretty good, probably in the top 2 of the normal basic elements, it's not better than lava or instantaneous movement. However, it has one absolutely insane feat. Okay, this is Sasuke's complete body Susanoo. His Susanoo is roughly the size of a tailed beast, who stand around 800 feet or 200 meters tall. This is the average Typhoon user and the scale of its jutsu. If something like this existed with even semi-logical physics, it would be pulling mountains from their base. This Kekkei Genkai is insane, but has a fatal flaw of leaving the user defenseless in the eye of the storm. But with wind speeds upwards of 500 miles an hour, whipping everything in a massive radius around, I think they'd be fine. Now, given that this Kekkei Genkai is just described to be Wind Release 2.0, we have to consider that every single wind release jutsu we are aware of can in theory be scaled to this level, given enough practice from the user. Meaning that jutsu like Kakuzu's pressure damage could potentially scale tens of times, which would absolutely make this one of the strongest Kekkei Genkai and earn its rightful spot here on the list. Next up we have Dark Release, another favorite of mine in completing the trifecta of Kekkei Genkai wielded by Hiroko from the Will of Fire movie. It has two abilities that work together to create what I think is an incredibly devastating combination. The first ability allows the user not only to absorb chakra, but physical and spiritual energy from a person or jutsu at a close range or at a distance. With even a little bit of exposure, this can completely drain another ninja of all their chakra and cause death. It's effectively an upgraded version of the Renegade's Preta Bath. The second ability allows the user to manipulate the stolen chakra and release it in a stream of blue flames. But the kicker is that this expulsion amplifies the power of however much chakra or energy was stolen and sends it back several times stronger. This means that the more powerful a shinobi, a user of this fights, the more powerful this ability becomes, especially if the person is reliant on jutsu with high chakra costs, which is basically everybody in Shippuden. This Kekkei Genkai essentially negates all form of chakra usage in a ridiculous range around them, forcing taijutsu. But what measures can you take effectively against a long-range vacuum that steals your life force energy? This is an incredible Kekkei Genkai. Magna Release is the combination of earth and wind, which is a bit suspect to me considering earth and lightning seem to fit much better for what's going on, but whatever. This is the final Kekkei Genkai obtainable through a Jinchuriki, that one being the one-tail Shukaku. Users of this Kekkei Genkai on a basic level are able to generate and manipulate magnetic forces, applying them to both people, tools, and other substances. They've also been shown to manipulate this on a very precise level, controlling iron sand to manipulate as they see fit, creating gigantic spheres of spikes, launching tsunamis of magnetically charged iron at an opponent, which if they make contact, not only will they take damage from the attack, but they'll become magnetically charged themselves. Now this is sort of where the two styles of this jutsu disconnect, and for whatever reason, nobody thought to use these abilities in conjunction. If a person can reasonably control magnetically charged things and transfer magnetic charge to other objects, organic or otherwise, then it stands to reason that if a person became magnetically charged, they would be able to be controlled by the Magna Release user. What I'm saying here is, if at any point you come in contact with even the tiniest grain of sand of one of these users, you would immediately be launched into space or torn limb from limb. The concept for a magnetic railgun is also pretty cool, launching small, sort of innocuous objects at like 6 times the speed of sound. And while faster than light movement has been more or less achieved in Naruto already, this is still a pretty mind-blowing achievement to accomplish. Okay, moving away from Elemental Kekkei Genkai, we have a really insane one. So you guys know that guy from Bleach, Aizen, right? And you know how his Kyoka Suigetsu allows him to control the senses of other people that have seen his Shikai release? And with that ability, he was able to become the entire main boss of the show? Okay, well, the Kurama clan has a genjutsu version of this, but it goes one step further, because the genjutsu they use are so powerful that anything someone experiences in the genjutsu, they experience in their physical form. So let's say, for instance, the genjutsu makes you feel that you are cut in half. Guess what? You too now are cut in half. This is reality-bending magic, a ridiculous Kekkei Genkai that is only held back by the users having a hard time controlling it. So basically, if they worked a little hard, they could master reality. Yeah, this is ridiculous. Not that it's important, I think the Sharingan would probably counter this, as it's been shown to counter pretty much all other non-Sharingan genjutsu, though it's too bad all of the Uchiha went on vacation at the same time. This might be a controversial next pick, but give me a minute to explain myself. The Jugo Clan Kekkei Genkai is mind-blowingly powerful. As we know from Jugo, he can basically become the protagonist of the prototype games. Yeah, you remember them. Manipulating his form in unique and creative ways, creating jet blasts, pistons to increase the strength of his punches, and a lot of other things. He's also incredibly durable, taking blows from the likes of the Raikage A, who was punched through the ribcage of Sasuke Susanoo. He also has an incredibly potent healing ability, both for altruistic and selfish use, being able to absorb flesh from fallen foes and use it to regenerate himself during or after battle. He can also use his own flesh to transfer into an ally in order to heal even fatal wounds. It's pretty powerful. But of course they're held back by the fact that their bodies are absorbing natural energy all the time, and are driven insane by this fact. But we've seen a 15-year-old Naruto master Sage Mode in like a week, which is just the balancing of natural energy and creating senjutsu. I say the Jugo Clan users, if given enough training, would be so well suited to Sage Mode, they'd effectively stay in Sage Mode at all times. And if you need a refresher on how powerful Sage Mode is, Naruto was able to dodge the third Raikage's attacks, whose speed has been compared to Minato's, who spammed Flying Thunder God. Instantaneous movement. Hot take over. Here we go. Wood release. Of all the Kekkei Genkai on the list, it has undoubtedly the strongest list of users. Hashirama, Madara, Obito, Orochimaru, Momoshiki, Asura, oh yeah, and the 10 Tails. As you would expect, it is comprised of earth and water and allows the user to create and manipulate wood-style jutsu. It is shown to spawn from the ground or extend from the user itself, and has created some of the most magnificent displays of chakra control and power in the entire series, creating dragons that can absorb chakra, wood avatars that can fight tailed beasts, and gigantic flowering forests, and of course the Thousand Hands Jutsu. Now this is generally reserved to be a Sage Mode technique, but even the smaller form still has hundreds of hands and still has considerable destructive power. I mean, this one was a given to be high on the list from what we've seen it do, and it's just amazing. This is undoubtedly one of the strongest Kekkei Genkai in the series, and the only bad thing that I can say about it is it took Neji from us. Alright, our top 2 spots are occupied by veritable world-changing Kekkei Genkai. For our number 2 spot, we have the Rinha Clan Kekkei Genkai, which exactly has one technique. It has the ability to absorb a person's chakra and create an exact duplicate of them that they have full control over. What does this mean for the world of Naruto? Well, let's assume that they got Itachi's chakra and created a duplicate of him. Well, now they'd have a Totsuka blade wielding, Yadamira shielded, Susanoo-clad shinobi that has no fear of death and can be used until something manages to kill them, if that's even possible, and nothing is stated that they can't infinitely create these clone puppets, or that sealing them would even matter. Effectively, this is Edo Tensei if plot didn't matter. No sealing, no random soul manipulation, no talk no jutsu, just mindless killing machines. And lastly, we have a sort of unexpected one, even to me, to be honest, and it's Sakon and Yukon's Kekkei Genkai. We'll start slowly because this one's a bit ridiculous. To start, this ability allows the user to control their bodies at a molecular level, much like with Jugo Clan's Kekkei Genkai. But it also allows them to invade the body of an opponent and destroy their cells from the inside. They become effectively a cancer that invades the body and kills whoever they infected. This is all well and good, but with just these abilities, it would have been placed under Jugo Clan's Kekkei Genkai assuredly. But there's just one jutsu that completely changes the way that we have to look at this. It's the strange transmission distant shadow technique that was used by Kabuto after he absorbed the cells of Sakon and Yukon. This allows the user of the technique to amass hundreds if not thousands of jutsu, dozens of Kekkei Genkai and dojutsu, and everything in between, effectively becoming what your friends on the playground would say to win an argument. Well, my dad is infinity plus infinity times stronger than your dad, and in this case, they would be right. With the right circumstances, a shinobi with this Kekkei Genkai should just spend years tracking down every other person's Kekkei Genkai and just taking a little bit of their cells and become the Voltron of shinobi. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of the list, and if you disagree, let me know in the comments. If you could, like the video and subscribe.